For decades, I've spoken about parallel universes, wormholes, the fabric of space-time itself, always with the comfortable distance of theory, always with the safety of mathematics. But what I'm about to tell you isn't theory anymore, it's happening right now. And the object responsible has a name you need to remember, 3I Atlas. Before we go any further, I need you to do something for me. And I'm not asking lightly. In the comments below, write the name of your city, just your city. And if you've noticed anything unusual in the night sky over the past 6 months, anything at all, mention that too. NASA, the European Space Agency, and several organizations I'm not at liberty to name are quietly collecting this data. They're looking for patterns, and they're finding them. Now take a breath, because what I'm about to share may change the way you see humanity's place in the universe. I'm standing here today not as a futurist, not as a television personality, but as a physicist who has spent his entire life believing that we were prepared for contact. That when the moment came, we would rise to meet it with science, with reason, with the full power of human intellect. I was wrong. We were never prepared. And 3I Atlas has proven that in ways I'm still struggling to comprehend. Let me take you back to the beginning, or what we thought was the beginning. October 2024. The Atlas Survey Telescope in Hawaii detected an object moving through our solar system at a velocity that immediately raised alarms. This wasn't like Oumuamua, the cigar-shaped interstellar visitor that sparked endless speculation. No, 3I Atlas was different from the very first moment we saw it. Its trajectory was wrong. Its acceleration profile made no sense. And within 72 hours of initial detection, 3 different observatories confirmed something that sent a classified briefing straight to the highest levels of government. It was slowing down. Do you understand what that means? Objects in space don't just slow down. They follow ballistic trajectories governed by gravity, momentum, inertia. They are slaves to Newton's laws, to Einstein's equations. But 3I Atlas began decelerating as it approached the inner solar system, executing what can only be described as a controlled braking maneuver. The energy required for such a feat, given its estimated mass of over 40 million tons, was astronomical. We're talking about power outputs that rival small stars. I was brought into a consultation group in early November. The briefing room was in a location I cannot disclose, attended by people whose names you would recognize, and some whose existence is not publicly acknowledged. The mood was not one of excitement. It was fear, cold, existential fear, because by that point, 3I Atlas had done something else. It had stopped. Not crashed, not broken apart, stopped. In a heliocentric orbit, precisely 1.2 astronomical units from the Sun. A distance that placed it in a gravitationally stable position relative to Earth's orbit. The mathematics were too perfect, the positioning too deliberate. And then came the transmission. I need you to understand something about radio astronomy. We've been listening to the cosmos for over 60 years through SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. We've heard noise, beautiful, chaotic noise, pulsars spinning like cosmic lighthouses, the hiss of the cosmic microwave background, the electromagnetic screams of dying stars, but we've never heard structure, never heard information until 3I Atlas. The signal began on November 14th at 03:17 UTC. Every radio telescope on the planet pointed at 3I Atlas detected it simultaneously, a coherent, modulated transmission on multiple frequencies, including the famous hydrogen line at 1420 megahertz, the so-called cosmic water hole where SETI has always hoped to find a message. But this wasn't a simple beacon. This was a data stream, compressed, layered, containing what our best cryptographers estimated to be exabytes of information, perhaps more. It broadcast continuously for 6 hours and 41 minutes. Then it stopped. And in the silence that followed, I felt something I had never experienced before in my career as a scientist. I felt small, genuinely, cosmically small. Because 3 days later, we cracked the header of the transmission. Not the full message that would take quantum computers years to fully decode, but the header, the introduction. And it was written in a mathematical language so elegant, so precise, that it could only have been designed for one purpose, to be understood by any civilization capable of detecting it. The header contained a star map, coordinates, not of three atlases' origin, that would come later, but of every technological civilization within 3,000 light years of Earth. There were 47 of them. 47 points of light in our galactic neighborhood, each one representing a world where intelligence had emerged, where consciousness had looked up at the stars and asked the same questions we have asked. And beside each coordinate was a status marker. Most were flagged in what we interpreted as green, the active, extant, continuing, but 16 of them were flagged red, extinct, failed, terminated. Earth's marker was yellow. We are under observation, under quarantine. I know how that sounds, like science fiction, like conspiracy theory, but I'm looking at the data, I've run the models, I've attended the briefings where intelligence officials speak in hushed tones about societal readiness and public stability. They're terrified of this information getting out because of what it implies about our status in the cosmic order. We are not members of the galactic community. We are test subjects. We are being watched to see if we pass some kind of threshold, some universal filter that determines whether a species is ready to join something larger or whether it will destroy itself like the 16 red markers that came before us. The rest of the transmission has been decoded in fragments. I've seen portions of it. Not all, they won't show me all of it, and I suspect even those with the highest clearances haven't been told everything. But what I have seen has fundamentally altered my understanding of physics, of consciousness, of the very purpose of intelligence in the universe. 3. I-Atlas is not a spacecraft in the traditional sense. It's better described as a node, a relay station, a beacon that exists partially in our four-dimensional space-time and partially in what the transmission refers to as substrate dimensions, higher dimensional spaces that underlie physical reality the way a projector underlies a movie. The object we see, the 40 million ton mass drifting in our solar system, is just the visible component. The rest of it extends into dimensions we cannot perceive, cannot measure, cannot even properly conceive of mathematically with our current physics. And it's not alone. The transmission contained evidence of thousands of these nodes scattered throughout the galaxy, forming a network, a cosmic internet, if you will, that connects advanced civilizations in real-time communication despite the vast distances between them. This network bypasses the light speed limit entirely by utilizing quantum entanglement on macroscopic scales, something we've always believed to be impossible. The energy required would violate thermodynamics as we understand it, but 3I-Atlas exists. It's out there right now, and it's telling us that our physics is incomplete, that there are layers to reality we haven't even begun to touch. Here's what haunts me late at night, what keeps me staring at equations that no longer make sense. The transmission included a timeline, an estimated timeline for Earth's transition from yellow status to either green or red. The mathematics were complex, probabilistic, based on models that analyzed our technological growth, our resource consumption, our social cohesion, our information systems. They're watching our internet. They're analyzing our wars, our cooperation, our art, our science. Everything we broadcast into space, every radio wave and television signal that has leaked off our planet for the past century has been collected, studied, and fed into predictive algorithms that make our most advanced AI look like a child's toy. According to their models, we have a window, a very specific window that closes between the years 2035 and 2055. In that time frame, humanity will either achieve what the transmission calls cognitive coherence, a state where we overcome our tribal instincts, our self-destructive tendencies, our addiction to short-term thinking, or we will fail. We will join the red markers. We will become another extinct civilization, a cautionary tale broadcast to the next yellow marker that emerges somewhere in the galaxy. And here's the truly disturbing part. The transmission suggests that this isn't random, that there is a deliberate pressure being applied to yellow status civilizations, a test. The 16 extinct civilizations didn't just fail through bad luck or cosmic accident. They were allowed to fail, perhaps even encouraged to fail, because the galactic community, whatever it is, whatever form it takes, doesn't want members who cannot overcome their own nature. They don't want warriors. They don't want conquerors. They don't want species that spread through the galaxy like locusts, consuming and destroying. They want something else. And the transmission tried to explain what that something else is, but the concepts involved are so foreign, so far beyond our current understanding of consciousness and purpose, that even our best linguists and philosophers have struggled to translate them. The closest approximation we have is this. They want species that have learned to think as ecosystems, not as individuals. Species where the boundary between self and other has become blurred, where technology and biology have merged, where the goals of the civilization are no longer expansion and survival, but something that the transmission calls resonance contribution. Participating in some vast, incomprehensible project that spans galaxies and timescales we can barely imagine. I've spent weeks trying to wrap my mind around this. I've consulted with colleagues in neuroscience, philosophy, computer science. We've built models, we've run simulations, and the conclusion we keep reaching is both beautiful and terrifying. What 3i Atlas is describing sounds less like a galactic federation and more like a cosmic organism, a distributed intelligence that spans solar systems where each civilization that passes the threshold becomes a cell in a larger body, a neuron in a universal brain. And we are being invited to join. Or rather, we're being evaluated to see if we're capable of joining. Because here's the critical insight that the transmission made very clear. You cannot force a civilization to this level. You cannot conquer your way there. You cannot mandate it through law or religion or ideology. It has to emerge naturally from within as a genuine evolution of consciousness. And most species never make it. Most stay locked in their competitive, individualistic phase until they develop technology powerful enough to destroy themselves, and then they do exactly that. The nuclear weapons, the climate destabilization, the AI systems we're building without fully understanding their implications. The transmission didn't explicitly mention these things, but it didn't have to. We've been flagged yellow because we are currently exhibiting every single warning sign of a civilization on the brink of self-termination. And 3i Atlas is here to watch, to record, and if we fail, to broadcast our failure as a lesson to whoever comes next. I want to tell you about something else that was in the transmission, something that has divided the scientific community and caused several researchers to quit the project entirely. Embedded in the data stream was what can only be described as a gift, a technology. Specifically, the complete schematics for a quantum consciousness bridge, a device that would allow direct mind-to-mind communication between individuals, breaking down the barriers of language, culture, misunderstanding, the kind of technology that could, theoretically, accelerate our path toward cognitive coherence. It's been 3 months. We verified the mathematics, the design is sound. We could build it with current technology, though it would require resources on the scale of a major international project. And here's where the debate gets intense. Half of the consultants believe this is a helping hand, a tool to guide us toward the threshold. The other half believes it's a trap, that introducing such a technology before we're ready would cause catastrophic social disruption, that it would be rejected by the majority of humanity, that it would accelerate our collapse rather than prevent it. And I don't know which side is right. For the first time in my career, I genuinely don't know, because both arguments are logically sound. Both are supported by evidence from our own history. We've seen technologies that were supposed to unite us instead become tools for division and control. And we've seen technologies that seem dangerous ultimately elevate our civilization to new heights. The governments of the world are currently in secret negotiations about what to do with this information, whether to release it publicly, whether to build the quantum consciousness bridge, whether to attempt communication back to 3i Atlas, because yes, the transmission included instructions for how to respond, using a modulation technique we had never conceived of. Some nations want to reach out immediately. Others want to remain silent, to buy more time, to study the situation further. And a few, I won't name which ones, want to attempt to capture or destroy 3i Atlas, viewing it as a threat to sovereignty rather than an opportunity. That last option terrifies me more than anything else, because the transmission made one thing absolutely clear. We are being tested on our wisdom, not our power. Any attempt to attack 3i Atlas would be interpreted as an immediate failure. The consequences weren't explicitly stated, but the implication was obvious. The quarantine would become permanent. We would be left to our own devices, cut off from the galactic network, until we inevitably destroyed ourselves or evolved past the need for outside contact, a process that could take millions of years if it happens at all. So where does this leave us? Where does this leave me standing here, trying to explain something that most of the world doesn't even know is happening? I've spent my entire career making the universe comprehensible, translating the strange mathematics of reality into language that anyone can understand. But this is different, because it's not just about physics anymore. It's about who we are, what we are, whether we deserve to survive. I think about the 16 red markers often. I wonder what they were like. Were they like us? Did they have art, music, philosophy? Did they look up at their stars with wonder and hope? Did they know at the end what was about to happen? Or did they die still fighting among themselves, still trapped in the same patterns that 3i Atlas is warning us about? And I think about the 47 green markers, the ones who made it. Who are they now? What did they have to give up to pass through the threshold? Are they still recognizable as individuals, or have they become something so different, so unified, that the concept of a separate self no longer applies? Is that transcendence or extinction by another name? I don't have answers to these questions. No one does. But I know that we're running out of time to find them. The window is closing, and every day that we continue down our current path, the divisions, the conflicts, the inability to cooperate on existential challenges that affect all of us is a day closer to becoming red marker number 17. There's something else I need to tell you, something that wasn't in the official briefings, but that I've pieced together from conversations with colleagues who have access to deeper levels of the data. The transmission from 3i Atlas included what we're calling echo patterns. Fragments of previous transmissions sent to other civilizations, and buried in those fragments are messages from some of the extinct civilizations. Final broadcasts, last words from worlds that knew they had failed the test. One of them translates roughly to this: "We saw the stars and wanted to own them. We should have wanted to understand them instead." Another: "The barrier was never technology. It was always compassion. We learned that too late." And my personal favorite, if such a dark thing can have a favorite, tell the next ones that intelligence without wisdom is just a faster path to oblivion. These aren't just philosophical musings. These are epitaphs, warnings carved into the cosmic record by civilizations that died because they couldn't overcome the same challenges we're facing right now. And they knew it. In their final moments, they understood exactly what had gone wrong. But understanding came too late. That's the tragedy that keeps me awake at night. It's not that these civilizations were stupid or primitive. They were probably brilliant. They built starships, decoded their own genomes, created art and philosophy that would put ours to shame. But brilliance isn't enough. Intelligence isn't enough. You need something more, something that we're still struggling to define, let alone achieve. The quantum consciousness bridge that 3i Atlas has offered us might be part of the answer, or it might be the final test, a way to see if we're wise enough to use power responsibly. Because make no mistake, that technology is power. The ability to share thoughts directly, to truly understand another consciousness from the inside, would fundamentally transform human society. There would be no more lying, no more misunderstanding, no more tribal divisions based on imagined differences. But it would also mean no more privacy, No more inner sanctum of the self. Everything you are would be potentially accessible to anyone else with the technology. Can we handle that? Are we mature enough as a species to live in a world of total transparency? Or would we fracture even further with some embracing the technology and others rejecting it, creating a new form of inequality more profound than any that's come before? These are the questions being debated in rooms you'll never see by people whose names you'll never hear. And the clock is ticking, because 3i Atlas won't wait forever. The transmission included a countdown. In approximately 7 years, the node will leave our solar system, continuing its journey through the galaxy to the next yellow marker, wherever that might be, and when it leaves, our window closes, the test ends, and we'll be judged based on what we've done or failed to do in the time we were given. I need to be honest with you about something. There's a part of me that's angry that we're being judged at all, who gave these advanced civilizations the right to categorize us, to watch us like specimens in a laboratory, to decide whether we live or die based on criteria we didn't agree to. It feels patronizing, paternalistic, like cosmic colonialism. But then I look at our world, really look at it, and I understand why the quarantine exists. We're not ready. We're brilliant at building things, but we're terrible at wisdom. We can split atoms and edit genes and send robots to other planets, but we can't feed everyone on our own planet. We can't agree on basic facts. We can't cooperate even when our survival depends on it. We're like children playing with matches in a room full of gasoline, and the adults in the universe are keeping their distance until we either grow up or burn ourselves down. And maybe that's fair. Maybe that's the only way a truly galactic civilization can function, by ensuring that everyone who joins has already proven they can handle the responsibility. Because if they let us out before we're ready, we wouldn't just destroy ourselves. We'd potentially threaten others. We'd be a danger to the entire network that 3i Atlas represents. So we're quarantined. We're yellow status. We're on probation, and the final exam is happening right now, whether we realize it or not. Every decision we make, collectively and individually, is being recorded, analyzed, fed into models that predict our future. And somewhere in those models is a probability curve that represents our chance of survival. I've seen the curve. I can't tell you what the percentage is. That information is classified at levels that make government secrecy look like an open book. But I can tell you this, it's not as high as we'd like to think. Here's what I want you to understand, what I need you to understand. This isn't a Hollywood movie where humanity pulls together at the last moment and defeats the alien threat through clever thinking and brave sacrifice. There is no alien threat to defeat. 3. iAtlas isn't our enemy. It's a mirror. It's holding up a reflection of ourselves and asking us to look carefully at what we see. And the only way we fail is if we refuse to look, refuse to change, refuse to evolve past the patterns that have defined us for millennia. We've always believed that the great filter, the reason we haven't found evidence of alien civilizations despite the high probability that they exist, was something external, a cosmic catastrophe, a predatory species that wipes out any emerging intelligence. But 3i Atlas has shown us the truth. The great filter is internal. It's the challenge of evolving intelligence that can control its own destructive impulses. Most species never make it past this point. We are currently failing this test in real time, and the universe is watching to see what happens next. I've been thinking a lot about consciousness lately, about what it means to be aware. For billions of years, matter was unconscious, atoms and molecules bouncing around, following the blind laws of physics. Then something remarkable happened. Matter became aware of itself. The universe opened its eyes. That's what we are. We're the universe looking back at itself, asking questions about its own nature. That's profound. That's beautiful. That's sacred, even to an old physicist who deals in equations rather than theology. But consciousness comes with responsibility. With the ability to observe comes the obligation to act wisely based on those observations. We've been given the gift of awareness, and what have we done with it? We've used it to build nuclear arsenals and destabilize our climate and create artificial intelligences we don't fully understand. We've used it to divide ourselves into competing tribes and to exploit each other and the planet we depend on. We've squandered the gift. 3. iAtlas is offering us a second chance, a guidebook, a technology that could help us overcome our limitations, but it can't do the work for us. That's the ultimate lesson of the transmission. No advanced civilization can save us from ourselves. We have to want to change. We have to choose evolution over extinction. And we have to do it soon because the window is closing. I don't know how this story ends. I genuinely don't. I've run the probabilities, I've studied the historical parallels, I've consulted with the best minds on the planet. And the honest answer is that we're balanced on a knife's edge. The future is not written. We could go either way. And what tips the balance will be millions of small decisions made by ordinary people who may never know that their choices matter to the cosmos. But they do matter. You matter. Because consciousness isn't just an individual phenomenon, it's collective. The choices you make ripple outward, affecting others, creating patterns that scale up to global consequences. Every act of compassion, every moment of genuine understanding, every time you choose cooperation over conflict, those aren't just nice gestures. They're evolutionary steps. They're data points that move us closer to the green marker status that 3iAtlas is measuring. And maybe that's the real message. Not that we need some revolutionary technology or charismatic leader or single transformative moment. Maybe what we need is for enough people to simply be better, to think longer term, to expand their circle of empathy, to question their assumptions, to learn, to grow, to evolve, not through genetic engineering or neural implants, but through the hard, slow work of becoming wiser. That's not a satisfying answer, I know. We want the universe to be dramatic, to give us clear heroes and villains, definitive moments of triumph or tragedy. But reality is more subtle than that, more gradual, more dependent on the accumulation of small moments than on grand gestures. And maybe that's the test. Maybe the species that pass the threshold are the ones who understand that transformation is a process, not an event. That you become worthy of the stars not through a single achievement, but through consistent, patient growth over generations. So I'll leave you with the question that's been haunting me since the moment I saw the decoded transmission. The question that keeps me awake, staring at equations and star maps and probability curves. The question that every person on this planet needs to answer for themselves. When we look up at the stars, do we see territory to conquer or neighbors to meet? Do we see resources to exploit or mysteries to understand? Do we see a vast empty darkness waiting to be filled with our ambitions, or do we see a community we've been invited to join? What do you see when you look up at the night sky? And more importantly, what will you choose to do about it?